And the next story is about Homer and Gary's teacher. As I said, they're fifth graders. And this teacher doesn't stay in Elmwood very long because she has some emotional problems. She's out in the plains of southwestern Minnesota, and she's from the big city of Rochester. And so it's kind of hard in the winter being on the plains of southwestern Minnesota. And so she creates her own world that's full of religiosity. And so this is the story. It's called Two Martyred Women and Two Future Saints. Children, could you imagine being stripped naked and then thrown into a coliseum full of lions and tigers and poisonous scorpions, all hungry for the flesh and blood of Christians just like you? Homer and his classmates gave out a collective shudder and listened, mesmerized by Sister Delenti as she went on. And then the humiliation of having hundreds of people looking at your unclothed self. Lo, the humiliation. Imagine men leering at you as they drank and ate to excess. Imagine the animals surrounding you, God's disciples, lions and tigers, pacing back and forth and then pouncing on you. Could you imagine? Two students in the front row jumped. Oh, I shiver at the thought of it, don't you? The class nodded, adjusting themselves in their wooden desk and trying to squirm out of their discomfort. It was Wednesday morning, religion class, that time of the week for hearing stories from Sister Delenti's favorite book, The Lives of the Saints. And once again, giving attention to her prized project, the St. Mark's Martyrs Hall of Fame. Sister's eyes were wide open, bright and alive as she talked and approached the Martyrs Hall of Fame bulletin board that hung just above the clanging and hissy radiators and between the blackboards and the upright piano. Imagine, if you will, my dear children, being thrown into that amphitheater, body parts strewn everywhere, and ferocious animals nibbling on them like someone would a chicken wing. Homer thought of last Sunday afternoon, dinner at his grandma's house. He had eaten 3 wings and a chicken leg. He swallowed hard, uncertain if he'd ever eat chicken again. And why were these saints killed, children? Because they were Christians just like you, that's why. Roman Catholics on fire with the fervor of Jesus Christ. Their only sin was spreading the word of Jesus across the heathen lands and attempting to convert the pagans bent on wiping them out. She clicked her tongue and shook her head in disbelief. Today, children, we want to honor 2 women, both martyred and saints. Truly, these women are deserving of the St. Mark's Martyrs Hall of Fame. She stood next to the 2 pictures on the bulletin board, temporarily covered with black construction paper, large question marks written on each. In a flash, she removed the black paper, revealing the picture of the 2 women. Both were on bended knees, their eyes lifted towards heaven, and small illuminated crowns hovering above their heads. On the left, we have Saint Perpetua of Carthage, who was martyred in 202 AD, and Blessed Saint Columba on the right, who was martyred in Korea in 1801. Children, the Martyrs Hall of Fame, as you know, is dedicated to those who truly modeled Christianity during their lifetime and died courageously for their faith. These women that I have selected are truly sainted Roman Catholics. She paused, returned to her desk, speaking as she sat down. When I was a little girl, I took Saint Perpetua as my confirmation name, and I continued to pray to her daily. Her eyes glistened over and closed as she... I thought somebody was sneezing. I was going to say, excuse me. Her eyes glistened over, and she closed she closed them, and she lifted her head towards heaven in prayer. Oh, children, as she came out of her, having her eyes closed, she said, oh, children, would that these days of Elizabeth Taylor's many weddings and Elvis Presley ducktails and the large sweeping automobile tail fins, would that they pass quickly and instead be filled with dedicated Christians, truth-seeking Catholics like Saint Perpetua of Carthage and Blessed Saint Columba. And now you, my children. Homer paused. He thought of his buddy cousin, his ducktail hair, his 57 tail-finned Chevy with Hollywood glass-pack mufflers. Now that, he thought, was neat. The 57 was fast, and Homer liked to ride in it after Sunday Mass when Buddy gave him a lift home. He wondered who told Sister about Elvis, since they didn't have TV, and she wouldn't have seen him on Ed Sullivan. Now, girls, listen carefully to this part of the reading as we honor these two sainted women, one a mother and the other a virgin bride. Would it be that all of you girls would be virgin brides and then mothers, holy and brave? And boys, please listen and honor these two women saints as you would your girl classmates, your mother and your sisters. Pray that these sainted women might guide you away from your sins of impure thoughts and desires. Her eyes scanned the room, stopping momentarily in each boy and finally settling on Homer. She gave him a longer than usual look. Did she know something? Let me read these words here. She reverently opened the Lives of the Saints books again. Columba, remember now, she was a mother just like yours and mine. Upon reaching her place of execution, modestly said to her captors, the law prescribes that those who are to be tortured should be stripped, but it ought not to be so for those of us who are women. She demanded that she die clothed, and her Christian request was granted. Sister closed her eyes for a moment. She folded her hands and her fingertips touched her lips. She shook her head slowly. So you see, girls, modesty of dress is important at all times, even up until death. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, sister, the girls responded somberly. Mary Margaret O'Halloran swallowed hard. And the boys, wouldn't you agree and support the girls in their modesty? Yes, sister. Yes, sister. Please, Sister Delenti smiled. She reopened the Lives of the Saints books to the bookmark, glancing up to seek certainty that she had her students' attention, and then continued reading. Columba, in her agony, called out to her son Philip, who was with her, but was weakened in his suffering. Cry out in a strong voice to Jesus, she impassioned her son. Jesus is with thee, Philip, just above thy head. He sees thee. Cry out strong. Enraptured in the moment, Jesus paused. Excuse me. Brought Jesus down. Enraptured in the moment, sister paused, lowered herself to one knee, and looked to the floor as if she were in prayer next to the body of Philip. She closed her eyes, slowly shook her head, and recited the next passage from memory. And with that, the child Philip took courage as the lion surrounded him, growling and groping and attacking, and he suffered martyrdom. She dropped her head and was silent. Homer thought that she looked like Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. She rose from her knees and she turned to Philip O'Neill, who was sitting in the front row next to the Knights of Columbus donated World Atlas that was larger than a first grader. Her look was angelic and sympathetic, like when Gary had told her about Prince, his blind and crippled pony that had died. The class turned their heads towards Philip. His thin face turned red as the hair in his head, and his many freckles seemed to disappear into the blush. The last time he got this kind of attention was when he wet his pants accidentally in class, which seemed to happen more often since his twin sisters were born. Imagine, if you will, children, our sweet and kind Philip O'Toole, your friend and classmate. Imagine him martyred. Margaret Mary gasped. Her girlfriends sniffled, and others in the class, including Larry Leonard, the second worst bully in town, instinctively bowed their heads as if preparing to give Philip extreme unction, the last sacrament before death. Philip's eyes widened. He gulped. He sat stone still as a Mary statue in front of church. Martyred, children, your very own classmate. For a moment, Philip looked as if he were cornered, as if he had been caught in a scheme gone wrong. But he hadn't been. He just happened to be named after a saint. He didn't look ready to die. He didn't look anything like a martyr. He was just a paper boy. Homer shivered. Margaret Mary O'Halloran emitted a low whimper. She was sweet on Philip and probably didn't want to see him die, even if it meant martyrdom and a quick pass into heaven. Mary O'Toole, Philip's cousin, took a Kleenex out of the packet in her pencil box and dabbed her eyes. Gary swallowed so hard that Homer could hear him 2 rows over. Can you imagine, children? By now, most could, and those who couldn't knew enough at least to look interested. Philip, your own classmate, imagine him martyred. Sister bowed her head. Everyone waited. She paused and went back to the lives of the saints. Let me proceed and read on to you. I want to read about the second woman in our Martyrs Hall of Fame. Relieved that attention was being taken off of him, the blush faded from Philip's face. He let out a slow sigh. Margaret Mary smiled at him sympathetically, glad that he was still alive, and Philip, seeing her looking his way, again turned red-faced.